If you're going to be jealous every time I go out, just leave, she said before her girls' trip to Vegas with 2 guys from her gym. I said, enjoy your trip, and let her go. Packed everything while she was in Vegas. My note, took your advice. She came home and called crying. I was already on a date. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The suitcase was open on our bed, a black hole swallowing lace and satin. I watched from the doorway as Qley folded a sheer black top I'd never seen before. The room smelled of her perfume and impending departure. You're sure it's just Jessica and Lauren? I asked. My voice was calm, a final checkpoint, not an accusation. She didn't look up. For the 10th time, yes. It's a girls' trip. Vegas. You know the plan. I do. I also know Mark and Jake from your gym are flying out tomorrow for a bro weekend. Same hotel. Funny coincidence. Her hands stilled for a fraction of a second. Then she resumed packing, her movements sharper. So? Vegas is a big city, Alex. We're all adults. We might say hi if we run into them. Running into them seems statistically likely, given the group chat you forgot to leave open on your iPad. I kept my tone level, observational. The one where Jake said, "Can't wait to see you, Qley," and Mark sent the champagne emoji. That got her to turn. Her face was a masterpiece of wounded exasperation. You went through my iPad? You left it on the couch. The notification popped up. I didn't dig. It dug itself. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. It just feels off, Qley. A girls' trip, where your 2 main gym buddies just happen to be there, solo. Their girlfriends aren't going. It's a weird dynamic. It feels disrespectful. She sighed, a long, suffering sound she'd perfected. She rolled her eyes toward the ceiling, as if seeking divine patience for my stupidity. When she looked back at me, it was with a dismissive pity that cut deeper than any shout. See, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. This is exactly what I mean. You're suffocating me, Alex. You hear about a guy friend, and your mind immediately goes to the worst, most possessive place. You don't trust me. It's not about trust. It's about respect. And optics. Optics. She let out a short, humorless laugh. Are you my boyfriend or my PR manager? I can't live my life worried about your optics. She air-quoted the word like it was a disease. She turned back to the suitcase, throwing in the sheer top with finality. I need space to breathe, to have fun without a chaperone in my head. If you're going to be jealous every time I go out and have fun with friends, just leave. The words hung in the air. They weren't spat in heat. They were delivered coolly, a surgical option presented. Just leave. Not, we should talk, or you're overreacting. The nuclear option. The discard clause. I felt the ground beneath me, the life we'd built, the shared lease, the shared groceries, the planned future, turned to sand. My heart didn't break. It went silent. A strange, ringing calm descended. She mistook my silence for surrender. A smug little smile touched her lips as she zipped the suitcase shut, the sound definitive. We need this space, she said, her tone softening into patronizing assurance. Maybe while I'm gone, you'll do some thinking. Realize how insecure you're being. I'll text you when I land, okay? Try not to work yourself into a frenzy. She walked past me, her suitcase rolling over my foot. She didn't notice. In the living room, she checked her reflection in the mirror by the door, fluffing her hair. She was already gone, her mind in a Vegas lounge, the victory of this argument making her glow. I followed her to the door. She turned, expecting a pleading look, a last-minute argument she could bat away. She saw my face and her confidence flickered, just for an instant. There was no anger there. No sadness. Nothing she could recognize. Okay, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. A statement of fact. Enjoy your trip. The blandness of it confused her. She blinked, off balance. I will, she said, forcing brightness. Bye, Alex. The door clicked shut. The silence she left behind was different now. It wasn't empty. It was full of clarity. I walked to the window and watched her load her suitcase into the rideshare. She didn't look back at our apartment. Not once. As the car pulled away, a memory surfaced, unbidden and cruel. 2 years ago, on our first anniversary, we were broke, both grinding at entry-level jobs. She'd seen a vintage guitar in a pawn shop window for months, a beautiful old acoustic she'd strum every time we passed. She talked about it like it was a lost friend. I'd been secretly saving for it, skipping lunches, taking extra shifts delivering food. The case was scuffed, but the sound was honey warm. When I gave it to her, she cried real tears, hugging it to her chest, then hugging me. "You're the only person who really sees me," she'd whispered into my neck. You get it. You get what matters to me." I sold my own guitar, a decent electric I'd had since high school, to help make the final payment. It was just an object. Her joy wasn't. Seeing her play that first chord, her face lit up, was worth every penny and every sacrifice. I was building a life with her, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. That's what you did for love. Now, that same guitar was propped in the corner of her bedroom, a relic of a person I no longer was, for a person she'd never really been. I turned from the window. The apartment felt alien, a museum of a failed experiment. Her parting words echoed in the new, hollow silence. "If you're going to be jealous, just leave." It wasn't a plea or a threat anymore. It was an instruction manual. And for the first time since she'd spoken them, I felt a faint, icy smile touch my lips. The plan wasn't born of rage or heartbreak. It was born of that silent, ringing clarity. She had given me the terms. All I had to do was agree. The silence after the door shut was absolute. It wasn't the empty quiet of being alone. It was the dense, resonant silence of a verdict being read. I stood in the living room, the ghost of her perfume and her last, smug words still hanging in the air. "Just leave." I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly, staring at the faint ring our coffee maker left on the counter. My mind wasn't racing. It was eerily, perfectly still. The emotional storm I'd braced for, the anguish, the rage, never came. Instead, a cold, surgical clarity washed over me, scouring everything else away. Her words weren't a heated retort anymore. They were data. Her trip wasn't a point of conflict. It was a conclusion. I pulled out my phone, my movements deliberate. I opened Instagram. I didn't have to search. Her story was at the top of my feed. The first clip, Qley, Jessica, and Lauren at the airport bar, glasses raised. The caption, "Vegas baby. No bad vibes allowed. #freedom. Already, the narrative was being spun. I was the bad vibe. My concern was the enemy of her freedom. I swiped. The next story, posted 20 minutes later. The camera panned. There, 2 stools down, leaning into the frame with practiced casualness, were Mark and Jake. They weren't running into them. They were a unit. Jake had his arms slung over the back of Lauren's chair. Mark was clinking his glass against Qley's. Her face was turned up to him, laughing at something he said, a laugh that was too bright, too familiar. It was the laugh she used to reserve for inside jokes with me. I didn't feel a spike of jealousy. I felt nothing. It was simply confirmation, like checking a weather app and seeing the predicted rain. The betrayal wasn't in the possibility anymore. It was in the pixels. Public, flaunted, and hashtagged. I closed the app. I didn't block her. Not yet. Evidence had a certain usefulness. The love I'd felt for her didn't shatter. It didn't even hurt. It just evaporated. In its place was a vast, calm emptiness, and in that emptiness, a single, unwavering directive. Follow her instructions. The plan formulated itself not as a revenge fantasy, but as a logistical puzzle. A problem to be solved with efficiency and finality. I started in the bedroom. I pulled my old duffel bag and a stack of moving boxes from the closet, leftovers from our last move. I worked methodically, without haste. This wasn't a frantic escape. It was a systematic exodus. My clothes came out of the dresser, out of the closet. I left the hangers. I took every book from the shelves, my books, the ones with my name scribbled inside the covers from college. I took the framed photo of my parents, the small bronze sculpture my grandfather had made, the wool blanket from my childhood bed. I boxed my toolkit, my favorite chef's knife, the expensive headphones she'd always borrowed and stretched out. I moved to the living room. I unplugged the 65-inch television I had bought on a Black Friday sale, wiping the dust from its back. I coiled the cables neatly. I took the game console, the controllers, the router. Especially the router. A petty, satisfying detail. The modem followed. Let her figure out her own internet. I left the ugly vase her mother gave us. I left the garish abstract painting she'd bought at a flea market and insisted was investment art. I left the throw pillows she loved. I left everything that was ours, or was fundamentally hers. In the bathroom, I cleared my shelf. Razor, cologne, the good moisturizer, my toothpaste. I left the half-empty bottle of her expensive shampoo, the loofah, the eyelash curler resting on the sink like a dead spider. It took hours. The sun moved across the floor. I didn't stop to eat. I didn't listen to music. The only sounds were the rustle of cardboard, the tape gun's thwip-thwip, and the solid thud of another sealed box hitting the floor. With each box packed, I felt lighter. Not emotionally lighter, but literally, as if I was shedding a weighted suit I'd been wearing for years. This wasn't my home anymore. It was the set of a play that had ended, and I was striking the set. The final step was the spare key and the note. I placed the key on the bare kitchen counter. I took a single sheet of printer paper and a pen. I didn't hesitate. I wrote 2 words in my clean, architectural handwriting. Took your advice. No name. No apology. No anger. Just a mirrored reflection of her own statement, given back to her devoid of the emotion she'd tried to weaponize. I propped it against the key. The emptiness of the apartment echoed around it. It was perfect. I called a moving company with a 24-hour garage. An hour later, a kid with a dolly helped me load the boxes and the TV into a storage unit. I paid for 3 months up front. Then I drove to the only place that made sense, my older brother's apartment across town. He opened the door, took one look at my face and the duffel bag in my hand, and stepped aside without a word. "Couch is yours," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. He didn't ask for details. He just handed me a beer. Sitting on his couch, the reality of the day settled. I wasn't sad. I was free. The chain yanking on my collar was gone. I took out my phone one last time. I went to her Instagram. The most recent story was a blurry, strobe-lit video from a club. Champagne bottles. Arms in the air. Qley, sandwiched between Mark and Jake, her head thrown back. The caption, "Living my best life." I smiled, a thin, humorless stretch of the lips. I took a screenshot. Then I blocked her. On Instagram, on Facebook, on every platform. Then I opened my phone settings. I blocked her number. I didn't delete it. Blocking was more final. It meant I knew she'd try, and I was preemptively refusing the attempt. I put the phone down on my brother's coffee table. It was over. For me, at least. The moving was done. The vanishing act was complete. She was in Vegas, living her best life. And I was gone. The next 3 days passed in a strange, peaceful limbo. I slept deeply on my brother's couch, the sleep of the emotionally exhausted. I called my job. I worked remotely as a software developer, and told them I had a family emergency and would be unavailable for the rest of the week. My boss, a no-nonsense woman, simply said, "Handle it. Check in Monday." I didn't check social media. I didn't wonder what she was doing. The mental channel that had been perpetually tuned to Qley was just static now. I went for long runs. I ate sandwiches with my brother and watched bad action movies. I felt like a patient recovering from a long illness, weak but clear-headed, appreciating the simple absence of pain. Her return flight was scheduled for Sunday evening. I imagined it vaguely, the way you might imagine the weather in a city you'll never visit. The plane touching down, the tired trek through the airport, the rideshare line. At 8:17 p.m., my phone, lying face down on the coffee table, buzzed. Then buzzed again. And again. A flurry of short, insistent vibrations. My brother looked up from his movie. "You gonna get that?" "No," I said, not moving. The buzzing stopped. A minute later, it started again, a longer, persistent vibration. A call. It went to voicemail. 30 seconds of silence. Then another call. I sighed, picked up the phone. The screen showed, "Unknown caller." A cold, knowing calm settled over me. I accepted the call and put it on speaker, setting the phone back on the table. I muted my end. "Alex? Alex, are you there?" Her voice was sharp, tinged with panic and indignation. It wasn't the voice of someone who missed me. It was the voice of someone who had opened a cupboard and found it empty. "Hello? Pick up, damn it." There was a rustling sound, a thump. "The power's out." "Why is the power out?" "And the internet is gone." "Alex, this isn't funny. Where's all my stuff?" "My TV." "You can't just do this." A beat of silence. I could hear her breathing, ragged. The voicemail beeped, and the call disconnected. My brother raised an eyebrow. "The plot thickens." I just shook my head. The phone buzzed again. A text, from a different, unknown number. "Unknown, Alex, it's me." What the hell? I come home to a dark apartment and half my things are gone. This is insane. You need to call me right now. We need to talk about this like adults. I deleted the text. Another buzz, 5 minutes later. Unknown. Seriously, Alex. I'm worried about you. This is so extreme. Are you having a mental break? Where are you staying? We can figure this out. Just call me. The shift had begun. Anger was sliding into concerned trolling. I pictured her standing in the dark apartment, the reality of the empty space, the literal and metaphorical void starting to seep in. The TV she watched every night, gone. The router that connected her to her world, gone. The comforting, taken for granted presence of my things that filled the life she curated, gone. I went to bed. In the morning, there were 3 more missed calls from unknown callers and a new string of texts. Unknown, Alex, please. I'm sitting on the floor and I'm just scared. Please just call me back. I made a mistake, okay? The trip, it was a mistake. It wasn't what you think. Mark and Jake are just friends. We all just hung out as a group. Unknown, I'm sorry I said to leave. I was stressed about the trip. You know how I get. I didn't mean it. Unknown, please. Baby, just talk to me. The word baby felt like a fossil, a relic from a dead language. It sparked nothing. The final message of the morning came from a number I recognized. Her sister, Mia. Mia, Alex, what is wrong with you? Qley is devastated. She came home to a nightmare. You can't just abandon someone like that. She needed some space to breathe, and you go full-on psycho? Man up and fix this. Call her. I stared at the message. The flying monkey, sent to guilt me. The narrative was already being spun to her family. Poor Qley, her controlling ex had a mental break and robbed her. I didn't reply. I blocked me as number 2. The karma wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was a slow, sinking realization. She wasn't being punished by a vengeful god. She was facing the natural, logical consequences of her own choices. She had told her live-in partner to leave. And he had. Thoroughly. She had gone on a trip flaunting her freedom with other men. And she had returned to the freedom of an empty apartment. She had wanted a life without my jealousy, without my suffocating presence. And now she had it. Completely. The true unraveling wasn't in her texts. It was in the silence she now had to live in. The silence where the hum of my computer used to be. The empty side of the bed. The lack of a ready-made dinner, or someone to complain to about her day, or someone whose stuff she could borrow without asking. She had mistaken the infrastructure of our shared life for the backdrop of her life. And I had quietly, calmly, dismantled the infrastructure. I got up, showered, and dressed in clean clothes. I had a different kind of logistics to attend to. I opened a dating app one hadn't used in 3 years. I updated my profile with a simple, recent picture my brother took of me on our run. I wasn't looking for a soulmate. I was looking for a distraction. For proof of concept. For a quiet dinner with someone who hadn't told me to leave. I swiped for a while, the mundanity of it feeling revolutionary. Within an hour, I matched with a woman named Sarah. Her profile was witty, her smile genuine. We exchanged a few messages. She was a graphic designer, liked hiking and terrible sci-fi movies. The conversation was easy, light. There were no landmines. No subtext. No history. Me. I know it's last minute, but any interest in grabbing a drink tonight? I could use a break from my own thoughts. Sarah, honestly? Same. 8 p.m. at the Alchemist? They have a great patio. I agreed. It felt surreal. 48 hours ago, my life had been a closed loop around Qley. Now, I was arranging a date with a stranger, and the only thing I felt was a mild, pleasant curiosity. As I got ready that evening, my phone buzzed once more. Another unknown number. Another voicemail. I played it while buttoning my shirt. Her voice was thick with tears this time. The performance more polished, more desperate. Alex, it's me. I'm so sorry. For everything. The trip was stupid. I was stupid. I came home, and you were just gone. You really left. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Please. I'll do anything. Just come home. We can fix this. I love you. Please, just call me back. Please. The I love you was the final, hollow flourish. A tool she'd used to win arguments before. It landed with the weight of a feather. I deleted the voicemail. I finished getting ready. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were clear. There was no grief in them. No anger. Just a man about to go on a date. At 7:55 p.m., I walked into the warm, buzzing atmosphere of the Alchemist. I found Sarah at a corner table on the patio, under a string of fairy lights. She was prettier than her pictures, with an easy smile. We greeted each other. The conversation flowed from the first minute. My phone, sitting on the table next to my drink, buzzed. The screen lit up, unknown caller. Sarah's eyes flicked to it, then back to me, a polite question in her gaze. I picked up the phone, my movements calm. I hit the side button, silencing it. I turned the screen face down on the wooden table with a soft, definitive tap. I looked back at Sarah, my apology genuine but unrelated to the call. Sorry about that. Where were we? You were saying the sequel is actually better than the original, which is a take I absolutely need to hear defended. She laughed, and we dove back in. The phone buzzed once more, a feeble vibration against the wood. I didn't flinch. I didn't look. I was already gone. The date with Sarah was a revelation in its normalcy. There was no heavy baggage exchanged, no covert tests, no analyzing every word for hidden meaning. We talked about movies, our respective creative but messy professions, and our mutual hatred of cilantro. It was light, engaging, and profoundly peaceful. When I walked her to her car, and we shared a brief, promising goodnight kiss, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't in years: uncomplicated anticipation. The buzz of my phone as I got into my own car was an insect against a window pane. Annoying, irrelevant. I drove back to my brother's place, the city lights blurring past. I didn't check the notifications until I was slumped on the couch. The screen showed a cascade of attempts, a digital monument to her rising panic. Texts from various unknown numbers. Unknown. 10:03 p.m. I saw you were online. You're ignoring me. After everything? How can you be so cold? Unknown. 10:15 p.m. I'm not eating. I can't. The apartment is so empty. I keep thinking I hear you in the other room. This is cruel, Alex. You're punishing me, and it's not fair. Unknown. 10:47 p.m. I called the power company. They said the account in your name was canceled. I had to pay a $150 reconnection fee. And the internet? Really? That's so petty. Unknown. 11:22 p.m. Jessica says she saw you on Heartlink. You're on dating apps? Are you serious? We're still together. You can't do this. Unknown. 11:59 p.m. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I looked. Please, just talk to me. I'll get off the phone if you just answer once. Tell me what you want me to do. Voicemail, transcribed from 12:17 a.m. Her voice was slurred, thick with whine and self-pity. Hey, it's me. Again. I guess. I'm just sitting here in the dark. I plugged in a lamp. It's so quiet. I never realized how much noise you made. Typing, cooking, breathing, a wet sniffle. I miss it. I miss you. The trip, it was nothing. Mark is an idiot. Jake tried to kiss me, and I pushed him away. I swear. I told him I had a boyfriend. I said I had you. I was stupid and trying to feel young, and you were just there, being stable. And I took it for granted. God, I took it for so granted. Call me back. Please. I'm begging you. The performance was almost impressive in its arc. Indignation, negotiation, victimhood, and finally, a version of confession crafted to elicit forgiveness. The line about Jake trying to kiss her was a new, desperate twist. Whether it was true or not was irrelevant. It was a tool. I didn't respond. I plugged my phone into charge and went to sleep. Her unraveling was not my emergency. The next morning, the attempt took a sharper, more strategic turn. Text from Mia. A new number. Mia. Alex. It's Mia. Qley is staying with me. She's a wreck. Whatever you're trying to prove, you've proved it. You've hurt her enough. Now be a decent human being and meet her to talk. She deserves closure, at least. I stared at the message. The audacity of her demanding I provide closure after she'd issued the eviction notice was almost amusing. I typed a single sentence, my first and only response to any of them. Me. She has all the closure she gave me. The conversation is over. I sent it, then blocked that number too. The backlash was immediate. A new number, exploding with fury. Qley, mask fully off. Unknown, likely Qley. Fine. You want to be a heartless prick? Fine. You were never enough anyway. You think I wanted to settle for a boring, predictable life with you? Mark has a BMW. Jake owns his own condo. What do you have? A storage unit in your brother's couch? You did me a favor by leaving. You're a coward who couldn't even fight for me. I read it. A faint, cold smile touching my lips. There it was. The true currency. The BMW. The condo. The valuation I'd failed. This was the bedrock beneath all the jealousy accusations. I took a screenshot. Not out of hurt, but for the same reason a geologist takes a core sample, to examine the strata of hypocrisy. The text stopped for a few hours. The silence was more telling than the noise. She'd played her final, ugly card, and it had yielded nothing but digital silence. I spent the day applying for apartments, the concrete act of building a new future a potent antidote to her chaotic past. That evening, as I was making a grocery list with my brother, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Hi, honey," she said, her voice hesitant. "I just got a very strange call from a very upset young woman named Qley." I closed my eyes. She'd called my mother. The boundary violation was breathtaking. "What did she say, Mom?" "She was crying, said you'd abandoned her, taken things, left her in financial trouble. She said you were having a mental crisis and that the family needed to intervene." She sounded desperate, Alex, and not entirely truthful. What's going on? I felt a surge of protective anger, not for me, but for my mother being dragged into this. I gave her the abbreviated, factual version. She told me to leave if I had a problem with her going to Vegas with 2 other men. I had a problem, so I left. That's it. She's facing the consequences of her own words and choices. Please block her number. My mother, bless her, was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Well, that's that then. I'll make your father's famous pot roast this weekend. Bring a friend if you'd like." The message was clear. We believe you. Your life is yours. It was the only reinforcement I needed. The final attempt came on Friday night. A call from a number with our old area code. I answered, silent. "Alex." It was her, but her voice was small, hollowed out. All the drama was gone, burned away. What was left sounded like defeat. I got your note. Took your advice." She let out a shaky breath. "That's all." After 3 years. It was all that was required, I said, my voice calm. It was the first time I'd spoken to her since "Enjoy your trip." "I'm losing my apartment," she whispered. "I can't afford the lease alone. My credit's not good enough to qualify. I have to be out in 2 weeks." I said nothing. The silence stretched. "Aren't you going to say anything?" she pleaded, a spark of her old irritation flashing. "Aren't you sorry? Even a little?" That was the question she'd been working toward. The demand for emotional participation in her downfall. The need for me to feel bad so she could feel absolved. "No," I said, the word clean and simple as a stone. A choked sound came from her end. Not quite a sob. The sound of a final door shutting. "Who are you?" she asked, not in anger, but in genuine, bewildered horror. "The guy who took your advice," I said. "Goodbye, Qley." I hung up. I didn't block the number. She wouldn't call again. 2 weeks later, Sarah and I were at Sunday brunch. We'd been out 3 times. It was easy. It was fun. I'd signed a lease on a sunny 1-bedroom with a view of the park, moving in the following week. My life was a blank page, and I was enjoying the process of sketching it in. We were at the Green Fig, a popular spot known for its waffles and long waits. We'd gotten lucky with a patio table. Sarah was in the middle of a story about a disastrous client meeting, using a fork to dramatize, and I was laughing genuinely when I felt the shift in the atmosphere. A shadow fell over our table. I looked up. Qley stood there. She looked diminished. Not ragged, but faded. Her hair was pulled back in a careless ponytail. She wore yesterday's jeans and a hoodie. Her eyes were fixed on me, wide and red-rimmed, burning with a toxic mix of desperation and fury. She ignored Sarah completely. "Alex." Her voice was flat, a demand. Sarah's story died on her lips. She looked from Qley to me, her expression politely curious. "Qley," I said, nodding. My voice was the same one I'd use if I'd spotted an acquaintance across the room. I turned to Sarah. "Sarah, this is Qley." "Qley, Sarah." The polite, normal introduction was a psychological grenade. Qley flinched. Her eyes finally flicked to Sarah, taking in her easy smile, her hand resting casually near mine on the table. She saw the shared mimosa carafe, the comfortable silence we'd just been occupying. "We need to talk," Qley said, her gaze snapping back to me. The command was there, but it was brittle. "Now? It's important." "We've said everything that needs to be said," I replied, picking up my coffee. I took a sip. It was still hot. "You left me with nothing," she hissed, the volume rising. A few people at nearby tables glanced over. "You ghosted me. You stole from me. You ruined my life." I have to move back in with my mom. Do you understand that? Because of your little stunt. Sarah shifted slightly. I gave her a small, apologetic smile that said, "This will be over in a minute." I looked back at Qley. I set my cup down. I spoke calmly, clearly, for the patio and for her. "You told me to leave if I had a problem. I had a problem. So I left. I took what was mine. I left what was yours. The lease was in both our names. You not being able to afford it is a financial reality, not a punishment." I tilted my head. "You got exactly what you asked for. You just didn't like what it looked like." Her face contorted. The tears that welled up now were pure, frustrated rage. "You were supposed to fight for me," she choked out. "When I said leave, you were supposed to beg me to stay. That's what you do when you love someone." There it was. The core of the script I'd refused to follow. I hadn't played my role as the groveling, insecure boyfriend, so her role as the magnanimous forgiver had been stolen. Her entire narrative had collapsed. "I did love someone," I said, my voice still even. "But the person I loved, the one who cried over a guitar, who talked about building a future, that person wasn't you. She was a story you told me. The real you told me to leave. So I listened to the real you." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, searching for a weapon and finding none. The insults, the guilt, the tears, none of it could touch the calm, factual fortress I now occupied. Her eyes darted to Sarah again, who was watching with a detached, almost analytical interest, then back to my face, searching for a crack of pain, of lingering care. She found nothing. Only a polite, implacable indifference. The fight drained out of her shoulders. The public spectacle was curdling around her, and she was the only one standing in it. I was just a man at brunch, being harassed by his unstable ex. "So that's it?" she whispered, the last ember of hope dying. "That's it," I confirmed. I picked up the menu, though I knew it by heart. I turned to Sarah. My voice warmed, returning to our world. "Sorry about that. As I was saying, the salted caramel waffle is legendary, but it's a commitment. The berries might be a smarter play." I wasn't dismissing Qley. I was simply resuming my life. She had ceased to be a relevant feature in it. For a long second, she remained standing there, a statue of defeat in a bustling patio scene. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away, her shoulders hunched against the sunny morning. I didn't watch her go. I didn't explain her to Sarah. Sarah, to her credit, didn't ask. She just reached over, squeezed my hand briefly, and said, "Berries are always the smarter play. But since when are we smart? Let's live dangerously. I say we get the caramel." I laughed, the sound real and unforced. We ordered the waffle. It was, as promised, legendary. We split the check, debated the movie we'd see later, and walked out into the bright afternoon. As I held the restaurant door open for Sarah, I caught a fleeting glimpse in the reflection of the window. Just the two of us, stepping forward. No ghosts. No echoes. Just the simple, solid present, and a future that was finally, unquestionably, my own. The story was over, and I was already forgetting the last page. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.